Hello and good afternoon, every one of you in the Gutsy Women Collective. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. And I certainly am. I have got the very lovely Alex Neal. She is a woman's empowerment coach. She does so much work with women to help you to lead the best life that you can lead and to empower you to do all the things you need to do to have a brilliant life. So Alex, welcome into the Gutsy Women Collective.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's lovely to have you in the group as well. So I'm really excited to have a chat with you today and see all about what you do, why you do it, all of those kinds of things. So can you tell people where you are as well and a little bit about your story? What got you to what you're doing now?
Sure. So I'm originally French, but I've been living in the US for almost 40 years now. It feels like it's like crazy. And I live in New Jersey, so I'm on the East Coast, about an hour and a half south of New York. And what I do is I really empower divorced and, for lack of a better word, uncoupled women to really rediscover who they are, recraft their identity, and basically create their life on their terms. Because what I found is when I went through my divorce, I came out of there and I had given so much to my husband, to the relationship, to his dreams, to his business, that I came out and I was like, well, I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am. So that's what started my journey into personal development. And, I started reading books and books and books and books and attending seminars and all kinds of things just so that I could get to really figure out who I was and how I wanted to show up, not just for me, but for the people in my life. And it's been a really incredible journey of self-discovery. And somebody recently asked me, like, when did you know who you were? And I said, I don't think I really knew who I was until I went through my divorce, because that's the first time that I actually took a beat and consciously thought about, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? With a lens focused here, which was hard to do, right? Because as women, we're often like, we think about everybody else and we want to do for everybody else. And then I was actually talking to my client about that this morning. It's like, but we also deserve the same thing. The thing that we give so freely to others, we deserve to give to ourselves. And so that's why I do the work that I do. I think um,
Yeah,
the
it's
more we can shine
mhm.
for ourselves, the more we can shine for others.
Yeah, definitely. That is so true because you touched on when you said that you poured so much into your husband and his life and his work, and you didn't know who you were. I I think there's a lot of women out there who can really identify with that because, like you said, we tend to give to everybody else, and we get kind of buried underneath all of those different multiple responsibilities for not only children, but you know, we still have families of our own. We may still have brothers and sisters and parents who are ill or whatever else is going on in our lives, and we just go beneath the whole lot, and that can really affect women's mental health within relationships. And it kind of brings up a story of women, single women and married women, and how that affects your mental health. I'm sure when you have clients that their mental health is maybe not so good when they come out of a relationship.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I see is the need for community, because some of the women that I speak with tell me, I've lost all my friends. Some women have even lost their families. And to be able to have that support system and that sense of community is so important for our own mental health, right? It's a sign of longevity. The people who live the longest, right, have the biggest communities, or not necessarily the biggest, but they have a community and a support system that helps them to move forward and to continue and to keep, to keep going. And it's, I think about too, because you talked about we have our own families, parents and everything else. Sometimes we don't know any better because of the role models that we have. And I look at my mom, right? She is an incredible woman who devoted her life to her husband and her children. And to this day, she has a hard time doing for herself because she's so used to doing for others. And that was my role model, right? I modeled what I saw at home.
Mhm.
Your life, less important, as long as your husband and your kids are doing okay. So it's within that spirit that I do the work that I do, because we've so often forgotten
Mm.
ourselves.
Mm. And I think eventually, when we give like that, something is bound to kind of trigger and break in us. And actually, there's a moment, I think, when, I know for me personally, there's a moment when I felt, well, what about me?
Yeah.
And as time went on, that what about me got louder. And so if we're not nurturing ourselves within the relationship, it seems as if at some point there's an inevitability of some break in there somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's not easy for everyone, right? Because it depends on the type of situation and the type of relationship you're in.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, if you're in an abusive relationship, taking care of yourself is paramount, but it might also be much more difficult to do. But there is always, and you know what? I when I hit 50, I was like doing for others didn't become less important, but doing for me kind of became equally important.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I don't know, there's like, I don't know if there's a switch somewhere in the universe that says when you hit 50, first of all, the opinion of others matter a lot less. But
Mm-hmm.
second of all, I think you're right. What you were saying is we, I think, come to the realization that we also need to take care of ourselves. And when I say take care of ourselves, I don't necessarily mean mani-pedis and massages, although those are nice, don't get me wrong. But it's also about speaking up for ourselves, setting boundaries, speaking our truth, and being authentic to to who we are.
Definitely. Yes. And I've, in my work, I've found a lot of women who come to me say that they were physically unwell within a relationship that wasn't working, because that the mental and emotional toll actually created physical illnesses, constant, might be getting colds, or the immune system was always low, headaches, gut issues, all of those kinds of things. And so to be able to have those boundaries and to be able to look at what's going on is, I would say that it's really, really an important thing for us to look at. And sometimes women don't get that, do they? When they are in maybe a relationship that they feel they can't get out of for various reasons. And how do you now help women to actually see all of this and help them to regain some of their own self-awareness and their own self-esteem back?
Well, I think you touch on a really important point, which is the self-esteem part and the self-love, right? So the first step for me coming out of a divorce or a long-term relationship is to really learn to come back home to ourselves. Because when we are comfortable with who we are, when we're confident about who we are, when we have a healthy sense of self-worth and self-esteem, it's a lot easier, right, to set those boundaries. Because when you're not sure about what you want, it's easy for people to cross boundaries, because sometimes you might not even set boundaries to begin with. Or if you have boundaries, maybe you're a bit flexible in terms of what's okay and what's not okay. So the first thing for me is always come back to you. You have given to others. It's now time for you to give to yourself. It's time for you to learn to love yourself so that you can not just give, but receive and be willing to accept when something is given. Because that's another thing I think, is that we have a hard time accepting. How many times do we get a compliment? Oh, that's a really nice dress, or blah blah, and you're like, oh, what, this whole thing? I'm gonna have had that. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like somebody gives you a gift and you're like, no, thank you, I don't want your gift,
Yes.
right? So being able to really, again, love ourselves, improve our self-worth, so that we come at life from a place of confidence in who we are, is really the first step.
Yes. And as you said before, it can be quite difficult if you've been a giver and a people pleaser a lot of the time to actually get into that way of thinking. So how do you help women to do that when say somebody comes to you and they've been in that place for such a long time? It feels like completely alien to who they are.
Yeah. I ask them to think, or to start small, because we can't go from 0 to 60. We have to, take little steps. So being able to accept a compliment. One of the things that actually I'm asking one of my clients to do is to write a list of things that she likes about herself and that she loves about herself. And I said to her, I said, if you get stuck, right, and list your successes, the things that you're good at, the things that you've done well. And if you get stuck, ask other people, because people see us in a completely different way than we see ourselves. And being able to get that outside perspective is, it's enlightening, because you're like, I never thought about that. I never considered that to be something, because we take for granted the things that we're good at, because to us it's no big deal, right? But the impact that it can have on the people around us and how they perceive us is huge.
Yeah, and other people will see in us something we can't actually see in ourselves, and there's another rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, exactly.
Just you go, really, is that me? Yeah. And yeah, I've seen it so often, and we find a lot of the time, if we have been in those kinds of relationships where, a lot of the time it's unconscious behavior from somebody else, but we've also got our own unconscious behaviors as well that we don't realize are enabling those things to happen to us as well. So when you work with women who are now newly single or wanting to be the best that they can be, then is your starting point self-esteem, or is it undoing some of the hurt that's actually been generated within that relationship?
So I'm working on a couple of different things, because I have one program right now which takes into consideration that one has already grieved the relationship, right? So I don't go into the grieving piece just yet, because it's something that I want to learn more about so that I can support my community in the best way possible. If I had the program all figured out and ready to go, I would say the first step is really grief, because you have to grieve not just the relationship, but you have to grieve the things that aren't going to happen. Like I had to grieve not having children. You may have to grieve, that retirement that you thought you were gonna have, years from now, where you guys would be spending your time together as a couple doing the things that you love. There's so many things that need to be grieved, and you can't really move on until you've been able to let that go. And that process takes time, and it's not a linear process.
Mm.
Yes, there are different stages, but they're not, you know, once you finish with denial, then you go into this, and then you go. No, it's like you're going like this all throughout the process. So I would say if you haven't grieved yet, give yourself the chance to do that, because for lack of a better word, and I don't like to use that word, but the faster you can go through your grieving period, the faster you can start to think about the future. So there's going to come a point where you're going to be okay with not focusing on the things that you've lost, but you start to think about what's coming next, right? And that's how that's one of the signs that that you're kind of making your way through releasing and letting go, so that you can then start focusing on, okay, now I can start to focus on really on me and what it is that I want and who I want to be.
Yes, I'm just thinking about, the relationships that I've been. I mean, I've had more than one marriage. I'm kind of getting close to Elizabeth Taylor now. Not quite there yet. I don't think I'll ever catch up to her now, because I'm not going to get married again. I was one of the people that used to joke about liking wedding cake too much. That was it.
Okay.
And so I just think about some of the time, and I can joke about it now. And this is just proof to everybody who's going through or maybe have a difficult relationship and they're struggling within it and they're not sure which way to turn, that, there is life after that. And you really do find yourself when you actually start to physically and mentally and emotionally concentrate on yourself. And I can laugh at that aspect of the mistakes that I made, of jumping in again too soon and being with somebody that wasn't quite right for me and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I'm thinking about the relationships that I had and how when I came out of them, I felt like I'd released myself from a prison.
Yeah.
And I felt as if I had now a new opportunity to actually not make the same mistakes again, and to really look at who I was and what I wanted in my life, especially after the last abusive relationship that I was in. And when I did that, and when I focused on it, I found the love of my life. And
Nice.
and that was amazing. Sadly, he passed away very soon after we were married, and that is a whole different story. But the shift in me after the last abusive relationship I was in, and the work that I did on myself, it just proved to me how freeing it can be to actually stand in your power as a woman who exactly knows what she wants, knows where she wants to be, knows where she wants to go. And so I'm just wondering, when was it that you felt that, when you were looking at yourself and saying, now what about me?
I want to say it was when I was done with the blame game, right? Because it was, of course, it was all his fault, and I did everything I could to save the marriage, right? And then I was like, but wait a minute, maybe not. Maybe I need to go back and look at, what my role was in the whole thing, and being able to first of all, be honest with myself to say, hey, it wasn't all his fault. You also played a part because it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And the second part of that was I can control me, right? I can't control anything else, but I can make decisions for myself. I can decide how I want to show up. And the beauty, similarly to you, is that once I started doing that work, I made room for
Mm.
the right person to come into my life. And it was an invitation for him to the universe. The universe doesn't make mistakes, right? The universe will bring you exactly what you feel you deserve, right? And I was ready. I was like, okay, this is my time. And I didn't want, like you said, to make the same mistakes again because I didn't want to go through that heartache again. And now I'm with my boyfriend. I hate to use the word boyfriend, but anyways, my boyfriend for the past almost 13 years now. We've been together longer than we were with our ex-partners, and it's pretty darn good. And when you get there, it's like, oh,
Yes, I know. I can identify with that so much, Alex, because when I met my late husband, and I mean I'd known him for 14 years as a friend, and it just never happened before. But because I wasn't emotionally, and I just didn't see him as somebody that I was worthy of. But that was my own. That's what got me into those negative relationships originally. But once I'd opened the door and freed myself from what was going on inside me, I was the healthiest and happiest person I'd ever been. And that really told me a lot as well around how my mind and my body works together, because I was the healthiest. I didn't have any symptoms. I was just
that's awesome.
absolutely, I was just running with it. I just remember coming out of university one day and feeling like I couldn't get any higher than this cloud nine that I was on. It was just a phenomenal time
Yeah.
in that, those 4 short years we were together. We were married 6 weeks when he passed away.
Oh
Um,
my God.
but it was like those 4 years, I felt like my future was set in stone. That was it. This was the pinnacle of what I've been looking for in my life in a relationship. And I just had this, yeah. And then you come to that place, don't you, when you open the door and you actually are in a really, really good place because you have started to look inward and released.
Yeah. And the thing is, when we hold on to something that's not ours, we can't make room for what is.
Yes,
And once we let that go, that's when all the possibilities open up.
definitely. Yes, I can really see that. And I can see how the work that you do with women is really, really freeing
Hmm.
and really helps them to like forge ahead. So when they come to see you, I would imagine it's a very unique experience for each and every one of them.
Yeah, because everybody's circumstances is different. Everybody's relationship is different. But the program is designed to take women through a process. And it's a process that starts with, kind of releasing, right? And getting clarity and really talking about the basics of what we want in terms of our lives. And then moving forward to really go from kind of that survival, you come out and you're like, oh my God, to really like, this is who I am. Like the image that just came into my head is, I don't know if you ever saw the Wonder Woman movies, but
Yeah.
there's always that one moment in the movie where she's standing there and she's got,
Yes.
her Wonder Woman pose, and that's like I get goosebumps just talking about it because that's the vision. That's what I see in my mind's eye when I start working with women, no matter where they are. that's the end point that I want for them.
Excellent.
And that I hope they want for themselves, not just, not just me wanting it for them.
Yes, that's it. And I know we've talked a lot about women coming out of relationships, like having a divorce or long-term partner and that kind of thing. But your work works with everything. If they've been a carer, if they've had, other things going on in their lives and that they felt has held them back, your work, I would imagine, transcends being a newly divorced or separated woman.
Yeah, it does. That's where I choose to focus because that's my story and that's what helped me. But I think any time or with anyone where there is a moment of transition, right? Whether it's a retirement, it's a loss of a partner, it's changing jobs, moving cities, whatever, right? It's the same. It works just as well.
Yes. Alex, I just think what you're doing is amazing to help women to actually find themselves and to really, really step into their own power. And part of being a gutsy woman is to regain your strength, resilience, and empowerment. And for all the women who are in the group and who are watching this video, this interview, I hope you will connect with Alex. I'm sure she's got lots of tips and strategies that she can help you with. And please, Alex, if you wouldn't mind putting your details into the comment and connecting and commenting on anything that comes up from your interview today. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and sharing, the great work that you do. It's amazing stuff.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope that something landed for you, and thank you for having me, Dee. This was fun.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I'll just end the live stream and I'll have a chat with you. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thank you.